I still remember that Tuesday evening clearly. It was 6:15, and I was standing at the pharmacy counter inside a brightly lit drugstore. I had a severe sinus infection, and my head was pounding. All I wanted to do was get my antibiotics, go back to my apartment, and sleep for 12 hours. I handed over my shiny gold tier company insurance card. I expected to pay the standard $20 copay I had mentally budgeted for. The pharmacist typed on her keyboard for a moment. Then she looked at the screen, looked back at me, and said the total was $350. What I did not know at the time was that when I sat down and did the forensic accounting on my own life, my expensive health insurance was actually a mathematical trap designed to make me pay twice. My name is Mark, and I spend way too much time obsessing over the hidden math of the American health insurance system. If you are someone who feels like a medical emergency would ruin you financially, even though you pay for insurance every month, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, I am not talking about political talking points or how to negotiate a hospital bill. I want to talk about the mathematical trap built into the premiums and deductibles of the exact insurance plan you are paying for right now. And I know it because I have been exactly where you are standing right now. At the time of that pharmacy visit, I was 32 years old. I was a mid-level marketing manager earning $75,000 a year. I thought I was doing everything perfectly right. Every 2 weeks, a significant chunk of my paycheck disappeared before the money ever hit my bank account. It went straight to my employer-sponsored health insurance plan. I never questioned it. I felt protected. I honestly believed that monthly deduction bought me an invisible shield against the worst things that could happen to my body and my bank account. But standing at that pharmacy counter, I just felt incredibly stupid. I politely told the pharmacist there must be a mistake. I explained that I had premium health insurance through my corporate job. She sighed. She had clearly had this exact conversation a dozen times that day. She patiently explained that my specific plan had a prescription deductible I had not yet met. The insurance company would not pay a single dime until I paid them another $1,000 out of my own pocket first. I handed her my credit card. I paid the $350. I walked out to my car and just sat there in the dark. I pulled out my phone and opened my payroll app. I found my most recent pay stub. I looked at the line item for medical deductions. I multiplied that bi-weekly number by 26 pay periods. The total amount I was paying every year just for the privilege of holding that piece of plastic in my wallet was staggering. And yet, I still had to swipe my credit card for basic medicine. I realized in that cold car that I did not actually understand what I was buying every month. I was not buying healthcare. I was buying a feeling. I was buying an illusion of safety that vanished the second I actually got sick. I decided right then that I was going to tear the entire system apart. I was going to read every page of the fine print. I was going to track every single dollar that left my paycheck and figure out where it actually went. And what I found when I finally opened the hood on my own healthcare costs was far worse than a surprise pharmacy bill. I still remember that Tuesday evening clearly. It was 6:15 and I was standing at the pharmacy counter inside a brightly lit drugstore. I had a severe sinus infection and my head was pounding. All I wanted to do was get my antibiotics, go back to my apartment, and sleep for 12 hours. I handed over my shiny gold tier company insurance card. I expected to pay the standard $20 copay I had mentally budgeted for. The pharmacist typed on her keyboard for a moment. Then she looked at the screen, looked back at me, and said the total was $350. What I did not know at the time was that when I sat down and did the forensic accounting on my own life, my expensive health insurance was actually a mathematical trap designed to make me pay twice. My name is Mark, and I spend way too much time obsessing over the hidden math of the American health insurance system. If you are someone who feels like a medical emergency would ruin you financially even though you pay for insurance every month, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, I am not talking about political talking points or how to negotiate a hospital bill. I want to talk about the mathematical trap built into the premiums and deductibles of the exact insurance plan you are paying for right now. And I know it because I have been exactly where you are standing right now. At the time of that pharmacy visit, I was 32 years old. I was a mid-level marketing manager earning $75,000 a year. I thought I was doing everything perfectly right. Every 2 weeks, a significant chunk of my paycheck disappeared before the money ever hit my bank account. It went straight to my employer-sponsored health insurance plan. I never questioned it. I felt protected. I honestly believed that monthly deduction bought me an invisible shield against the worst things that could happen to my body and my bank account. But standing at that pharmacy counter, I just felt incredibly stupid. I politely told the pharmacist there must be a mistake. I explained that I had premium health insurance through my corporate job. She sighed. She had clearly had this exact conversation a dozen times that day. She patiently explained that my specific plan had a prescription deductible I had not yet met. The insurance company would not pay a single dime until I paid them another $1,000 out of my own pocket first. I handed her my credit card. I paid the $350. I walked out to my car and just sat there in the dark. I pulled out my phone and opened my payroll app. I found my most recent pay stub. I looked at the line item for medical deductions. I multiplied that bi-weekly number by 26 pay periods. The total amount I was paying every year just for the privilege of holding that piece of plastic in my wallet was staggering. And yet, I still had to swipe my credit card for basic medicine. I realized in that cold car that I did not actually understand what I was buying every month. I was not buying healthcare. I was buying a feeling. I was buying an illusion of safety that vanished the second I actually got sick. I decided right then that I was going to tear the entire system apart. I was going to read every page of the fine print. I was going to track every single dollar that left my paycheck and figure out where it actually went. And what I found when I finally opened the hood on my own healthcare costs was far worse than a surprise pharmacy bill. I did not have a name for it back then. I had been calling it the invisible trap for months in my own head. Turns out, it already had a name. When I finally went looking, I found out it was called the coverage illusion. I did not know it had a name until I started really digging into this. When I started reading deeper on this topic, I found a report that changed everything. Late one night, I came across a 2023 study by the Commonwealth Fund. I used to think that having insurance through a good corporate job meant I was financially safe from medical debt. Then I found their data showing that nearly 1/4 of working-age Americans with employer coverage are officially classified as underinsured. I read that number twice. Millions of people who go to work every day and pay their premiums every single month are still completely exposed to financial disaster if they actually get sick. It means the piece of plastic in our wallets is lying to us. I remember the exact feeling in my chest when I read that study. It was a mix of anger and embarrassment. I had always considered myself good with money. I tracked my grocery spending. I kept my car maintenance on a strict schedule. I even optimized my internet bill to save $20 a month. But I was bleeding thousands of dollars a year in health premiums without a second thought. I was stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. At first, I only saw this part, and I thought I understood it. I sat down with my pay stubs at my kitchen table. I brought out a legal pad and a pen. I looked at the exact numbers of my own life. I was earning $75,000 a year. Every 2 weeks, my company deducted $150 from my paycheck for my premium health plan. I multiplied that out. $150 times 26 pay periods equals $3,900 a year. Almost $4,000 of my own money was vanishing before I ever saw it. I looked at that number and tried to justify it. I told myself that was just the cost of doing business as a responsible adult. But then I looked at my actual medical usage for that entire year up to that point. Before that, Tuesday night at the pharmacy, I had gone to the doctor exactly once. It was an annual physical that was supposed to be fully covered, $0 out of pocket, but when I factored in the monthly premiums I had paid all year just to get that physical, that single 30-minute appointment actually cost me $3,900. This is layer 1 of the trap. We pay a massive subscription fee just to exist in the system. We treat it like a tax. We stop looking at the money because it never hits our checking accounts. We accept the loss of $4,000 a year because we blindly believe it protects us from losing $40,000 later. I stared at my legal pad. I had paid thousands of dollars for a safety net, and the very first time I actually needed medicine, I still had to hand the pharmacist $350 of my own money. The math was not adding up. But when I dug deeper into my benefit documents, I found something that most people never notice. The premium was just the cover charge to get inside the building. And the real robbery was waiting at the door. I spent that entire weekend sitting at my kitchen table. I laid out every single pay stub I had received since I started my corporate job 3 years earlier. I wanted to see the exact size of the hole in my bucket. I was earning $75,000 a year. Every 2 weeks, my gross pay was roughly $2,884. I saw the federal taxes come out. I saw my retirement contribution come out. And then right there near the bottom was my medical premium deduction, $150. Gone every 14 days like clockwork. I pulled out my calculator. $150 times 26 pay periods was $3,900 a year. Over the 3 years I had worked there, I had paid $11,700 directly to my health insurance company. I wrote that number down on my legal pad and stared at it. $11,700. I thought about what I had actually received in exchange for that massive amount of money. I had gone to 3 annual physicals, I had gotten 3 flu shots, and I had that one Tuesday night visit to the pharmacy for sinus medication. If I had simply paid cash out of pocket for those basic physicals and vaccines at a local clinic, the total cost over 3 years would have been maybe $800. Instead, I had paid almost $12,000. I used to think my premium deduction was just a standard, unavoidable cost of being a responsible adult. Then I found a 2023 Employer Health Benefits Survey from the Kaiser Family Foundation. Their data showed that the average American worker contributes about $1,400 annually for single coverage, while workers with family coverage contribute over $6,500 a year out of their own paychecks. I read those numbers and felt a chill. Working people across the country were bleeding thousands of dollars a year in premiums just to maintain active status in a system they desperately hoped they would never have to use. This means an entire generation of workers is quietly financing the insurance industry with their base salaries. But the part that really bothered me was why I had chosen this specific plan in the first place. During my first week of orientation, the human resources representative handed me a glossy brochure. I asked her which plan was the best. She pointed to the gold tier option. She told me it was the most popular choice because it had the lowest out-of-pocket costs. I wanted to be responsible. I wanted to be completely safe. I signed the paperwork on the spot without running a single calculation. I bought the gold plan because I was terrified of medical debt. I was paying top dollar for peace of mind. But peace of mind is an emotion, not a mathematical strategy. I was essentially placing a $4,000 bet every single year that I was going to get catastrophically sick. And every year that I stayed healthy, the insurance company kept my entire bet. I looked at my legal pad again. I understood the premium trap now. At first, I only saw this part, and I thought I understood the whole problem. I thought the premium was the only drain on my wealth. But when I flipped over my benefit packet and started reading the fine print about what happens when you actually get sick, my stomach dropped. The premiums were just the cover charge to get inside the building. The real financial trap was waiting for me in the specific definitions of what covered actually meant. Because as bad as $11,700 sounded, the math got so much worse when I reached the next page. I turned the page of my benefit packet and found the section labeled deductible. But when I dug deeper, I found something that most people never notice. I had always assumed my deductible was just a technical term. I thought it only mattered if I needed a massive surgery or if I got into a terrible car crash. But that $350 pharmacy bill forced me to finally look up what the word actually meant in practice. My gold tier plan had a deductible of $1,500. I used to think that meant the insurance company would cover my bills, and I would just pay a small copay along the way. I thought we were sharing the cost. Then I read the actual legal definition in my packet. The deductible is the amount of money I have to pay entirely out of my own pocket before the insurance company pays a single dime toward my actual care. I look back at my calculator. I was already paying $3,900 a year in premiums. That money was gone no matter what. The company took it directly from my paycheck. But if I actually got sick, if I needed a specialist or a scan or an expensive round of antibiotics, I was on the hook for the next $1,500. I added the numbers together. That meant my true cost of accessing real health care was not $3,900. My starting line was $5,400. I was earning $75,000 a year. $5,400 was roughly 10% of my entire take-home pay after taxes. And I had to spend all of it before my expensive gold tier insurance actually acted like insurance. I used to think that high deductibles were only for cheap, catastrophic plans that people bought when they were young and broke. Then I found a 2023 report from the Kaiser Family Foundation tracking employer health benefits. Their data showed that the average single deductible for workers had reached $1,735. I looked at that number and realized how deep this system went. Over the previous decade, the amount workers had to pay out of pocket before their insurance kicked in had grown almost 3 times faster than their wages had grown. That means every single year, the safety net is being pulled further and further away from the very people who are paying for it. This was layer 2 of the trap. The insurance companies had quietly transferred the day-to-day financial risk right back onto my shoulders. They get their $3,900 guaranteed every single year. If I stay perfectly healthy, they keep all of it. If I get sick, I have to bleed out another $1,500 before they step in to do their jobs. They engineered a mathematical system where they win either way, and I lose either way. I realized I was caught deep in the coverage illusion. I carried a shiny piece of plastic in my wallet that told the world I was insured, but the math on my legal pad proved I was completely on my own for almost any normal illness or minor injury. I was basically self-insuring my own health up to $5,400 a year while paying a massive corporate middleman for the privilege of doing so. I sat back in my chair and rubbed my eyes. The trap was starting to close in on me. I had uncovered the premium drain. I had found the deductible wall. I thought I had finally mapped out the entire system. But this is the part that took me years to figure out. The part nobody tells you about. Because the money leaving my paycheck was only half the story. The real financial damage was happening before the money even reached my gross salary. And this is the part that took me years to figure out. The part nobody tells you. I sat at my kitchen table with my calculator and my pay stubs scattered everywhere. I thought I had found the bottom of the trap. I had tallied up my premiums. I had added my deductible. I thought $5,400 was the true annual cost of my health care. But there was one more line on my pay stub that I had completely ignored for 3 years. It was a tiny box, printed in light gray ink. It was labeled Employer Contribution. I looked at the number inside that box. $600. Every 2 weeks, while I was paying $150, my employer was paying $600 to the exact same insurance company. I multiplied $600 by 26 pay periods. That equaled $15,600 a year. I stopped breathing for a second. I looked at the total. My company was not paying $75,000 to employ me. They were paying over $90,000 to employ me. But $15,600 of my total compensation was being secretly funneled directly to an insurance conglomerate before it ever reached my gross salary. I used to think that employer contributions were just free money. I thought it was a generous perk of working for a good corporate machine. Then I found a 2019 study by the National Bureau of Economic Research looking at the relationship between healthcare costs and wages. Their data showed that when employer healthcare premiums go up, workers absorb those costs entirely through lower wages and canceled raises. I read that paper 3 times. The money my company was paying for my health insurance was not a gift. It was my money. It was my compensation. It was part of my true market value as an employee. This was the hidden wage theft of the coverage illusion. I started running the numbers over a 10-year timeline. Insurance premiums go up every single year. Let us say the premium increases by 8% annually. My employer has to cover their portion of that massive increase. When annual review time comes around, my manager calls me into an office and tells me budgets are tight. They give me a 2% raise, or a 1% raise, or nothing at all. I thought the company was being cheap, but the company was actually spending my raise. They were just sending it directly to the health insurance provider to cover the rising cost of the exact same gold tier plan. My standard of living stayed exactly the same, but my health care became more expensive. I calculated what $15,600 a year looked like over a decade. $156,000. That was $156,000 of my compensation that I would never see. I could not invest it. I could not use it to buy a house. I could not use it to build wealth. It was trapped in a system that still forced me to pay $350 at the pharmacy counter. I was paying $3,900 a year out of my paycheck. My company was paying $15,600 a year out of my total compensation package. The total cost of my single health insurance policy was actually $19,500 a year. For one healthy 32-year-old man, almost $20,000 a year was vanishing into the healthcare machine to insure a body that went to the doctor once a year for a standard physical. And if I actually broke my arm or got a sinus infection, I still had to pay the $1,500 deductible first. The insurance company was taking a massive cut of my present income. They were quietly taking my future raises, and they were still leaving me financially exposed at the exact moment I needed them. I sat alone in my kitchen staring at the final numbers. I had no idea how to escape. I felt completely trapped by a system I could not opt out of without risking total financial ruin. The math was crushing. But when I finally set up a spreadsheet to compare my gold plan to the alternative I had been too scared to look at, the true cost of my fear became mathematically undeniable. I opened a blank spreadsheet. I needed to see exactly what this fear was costing me over the long term. I created 2 columns. The first column was the path I was currently on. The second column was the path I had been too terrified to take. Path 1 was my shiny gold tier plan. I was paying $3,900 a year in premiums out of my own pocket. I projected that exact cost out over a 20-year timeline. I assumed my health stayed relatively normal. A few sinus infections, a sprained ankle, maybe one minor surgery. Over 20 years, I would pay $78,000 in base premiums alone. Every single penny of that $78,000 would vanish into the insurance company revenue stream. At the end of 2 decades, I would own nothing. My medical net worth would be exactly 0, and I would still be paying out of pocket for prescriptions. Then I built Path 2. During open enrollment, my company had offered a high-deductible health plan. It was the plan everyone warned me to avoid. They said it was too risky. The premium for that plan was only $50 a paycheck. That equals $1,300 a year. I subtracted $1,300 from $3,900. That left me with $2,600 a year in pure cash flow that was no longer being drained from my paycheck. Here's what the spreadsheet showed me. If I took that high-deductible plan, I could open a health savings account. A health savings account is a real financial account that I actually own. The money never expires. It rolls over every single year, and I can invest it in the stock market exactly like a retirement account. So I ran the math on that $2,600. If I automatically deposited that saved premium money into my health savings account every year, and I invested it in an index fund earning an average 8% annual return, the numbers completely broke my brain. After 20 years, I would not have $0. I would have roughly $128,000 in tax-free money sitting in an account with my name on it. I stared at the screen. I felt completely sick to my stomach. This was the true lifetime cost of the coverage illusion. By choosing the safe gold plan, I was actively choosing to burn $78,000 to guarantee a 0 return. If I chose the supposedly dangerous plan and simply saved the difference, I would build a $128,000 fortress of cash, specifically designated for my own health care. If I got sick under the gold plan, I still had to pay a $1,500 deductible out of my checking account. If I got sick under the high-deductible plan, I would have to pay a $3,000 deductible, but I would be paying it out of an account holding tens of thousands of dollars of my own invested money. Money that was growing tax-free. Money that nobody could ever take away from me if I changed jobs or got laid off. I had been paying top dollar for the illusion of safety. But the math proved that the gold plan was actually the riskiest financial move I could possibly make. It guaranteed that I would never build my own medical safety net. It kept me permanently dependent on a corporate system that could change the rules, deny my claims, or raise my rates at any time. I had let my fear of a temporary medical bill rob me of a permanent 6-figure asset. The weight of that realization sat heavily on my chest. I knew exactly what the math was telling me to do. But escaping the trap was not just a math problem. That was when I finally understood why I kept getting stuck even when I knew the right answer. The spreadsheet was sitting right in front of me on my laptop, proving that I was losing tens of thousands of dollars over my lifetime. But my hand still did not want to click the button to switch my enrollment. I realized that the health insurance industry is not actually in the business of selling healthcare. They are in the business of selling anxiety relief. I looked back at how I originally picked my plan. When I was sitting in orientation 3 years earlier, the Human Resources portal presented me with 3 choices. They were literally called bronze, silver, and gold. I am a marketing manager. I should have seen the psychological manipulation immediately. We are conditioned from childhood to believe that gold is the standard of excellence. Bronze means you barely made the podium. Bronze means you are settling for less. I did not want bronze-level healthcare for my own body. The benefits portal even had a little interactive slider. It asked me a hypothetical question. What if you get into a severe car accident this year? I dragged the slider to the worst-case scenario. The bar chart for the high-deductible plan shot up into the red. It showed me owing thousands of dollars all at once. The bar chart for the gold plan stayed a comforting, low green. That visualization terrified me. I gladly handed over $3,900 a year in base premiums just to make the red bar go away. I used to think that people only chose expensive premium plans because they did not understand basic math. Then I found a 2022 survey by the American Psychiatric Association tracking national anxiety. Their data showed that roughly 6 in 10 Americans are highly anxious about paying for unexpected healthcare bills. I read that and finally understood the trap. It was not a lack of financial literacy. It was weaponized fear. The insurance companies know exactly how terrified we are of medical bankruptcy, and they price their premiums exactly at the threshold of that terror. They exploit our natural human tendency called loss aversion. Psychologists have proven that the pain of losing $1,000 feels twice as intense as the joy of gaining $1,000. When I looked at the high-deductible plan, all I could see was the terrifying possibility of writing a $3,000 check to a hospital if I broke my leg. The insurance company made sure that potential loss was placed right in front of my face in bright red ink, but they completely hid the guaranteed loss of the $3,900 premium. They made it invisible by taking it directly out of my paycheck before I ever touched the money. My brain did not process it as a loss because I never felt the cash in my hands. I was getting played by my own psychology. I was voluntarily bleeding out nearly $4,000 a year in guaranteed premiums to protect myself from the incredibly small chance of having to pay $3,000 for an emergency. The math was entirely backwards. I was paying more in guaranteed losses than the maximum possible penalty of the cheaper plan. I sat at my kitchen table and took a deep breath. I knew the high-deductible plan was the mathematical winner. I knew the health savings account was the only way out of the coverage illusion. Let me say out loud the objection that is forming in your head right now, because it used to form in mine. The moment I tried to convince myself to actually make the switch, my brain threw up a massive wall of what-ifs. I know exactly what you are thinking right now because I thought the exact same thing. I pushed back against this idea for years. My immediate reaction was always the worst-case scenario. I told myself that high-deductible plans were fine if you just had a sinus infection or a minor sports injury. But what if I got into a terrible highway crash? What if I got a sudden cancer diagnosis? What if the hospital bill was $200,000? I genuinely believed that if I dropped my premium gold tier plan, a true medical emergency would bankrupt me instantly. This is the most common objection to leaving the premium trap, and it is entirely based on a misunderstanding of how the safety net actually works. I opened my benefit packet again. I flipped to the very back page where the maximum liability limits were listed. I was looking for a specific term called the out-of-pocket maximum. This is the absolute legal limit that an insurance company can force you to pay in a single year for covered in-network services. Once you hit that number, the insurance company has to pay 100% of everything else. I ran the absolute worst-case scenario, math for both plans side by side. If I kept my gold plan and got into a catastrophic accident, I would pay my $3,900 in guaranteed premiums. Then I would be billed until I hit my out-of-pocket maximum, which was $4,000 on that specific plan. My absolute worst-case financial nightmare under the Gold Plan was a total annual cost of $7,900. Then I ran the math on the supposedly dangerous high-deductible plan. My guaranteed premiums were only $1,300 a year. The out-of-pocket maximum for that plan was higher. It was $6,000. I added those numbers together. $1,300 in premiums plus a $6,000 maximum penalty. My absolute worst-case financial nightmare under the cheap plan was a total cost of $7,300. I stared at the legal pad on my kitchen table. The math was completely counterintuitive. The supposedly dangerous plan was actually $600 cheaper in a catastrophic medical emergency than the Gold Tier plan. I had been paying top dollar for protection that was mathematically inferior in every single scenario. If I stayed healthy, the high-deductible plan saved me thousands of dollars. If I got catastrophically sick, the high-deductible plan still saved me $600. The Gold Plan was a mathematical loser no matter what happened to my body. I used to think that catastrophic medical bills were a constant looming threat for an average healthy adult. Then, I found a 2022 analysis from the Peterson Center on Healthcare. Their data showed that less than 2% of people with employer coverage actually hit their out-of-pocket maximum in any given year. I looked at that percentage and shook my head. I was willingly bleeding out almost $4,000 a year in guaranteed premium losses just to protect myself from a 2% probability. And the craziest part was that my expensive protection plan actually cost more in that rare 2% scenario anyway. That was the moment the coverage illusion completely broke for me. The fear was gone. The numbers had finally set me free. Now, I just needed to execute the escape plan. The moment the math finally clicked in my head, the panic completely disappeared. I was no longer afraid of my health insurance. I was just ready to stop losing money. But I knew I could not just blindly jump into a new plan without a strategy. I needed a bridge to get me from the Gold Plan to the high-deductible plan safely. The first thing I did was run a ruthless audit of my actual medical history. I did not rely on my memory. I logged into my insurance portal and downloaded every single explanation of benefits I had received over the previous 3 years. I took out a blank sheet of paper and wrote down exactly what I had actually consumed in healthcare: 3 annual physicals, 3 flu shots, 1 visit for a sprained ankle, and that one terrible sinus infection that started this entire journey. I looked up the cash price for every single one of those visits if I had just walked into a local clinic with no insurance at all. The grand total for 3 years of my actual medical consumption was roughly $1,100, but I had paid $11,700 in guaranteed premiums to my insurance company over those same 3 years. I had overpaid by $10,600 for medical care I never even used. Seeing my own real numbers on paper was the final proof I needed. I was absolutely a mathematical candidate for a high-deductible health plan. The second step I took was building my medical cash buffer. This is the step most people skip, and it is exactly why they panic and switch back to the expensive plan after 1 year. I knew the new plan I wanted would have a $3,000 deductible. If I got hit by a delivery truck on January 1st, I would need $3,000 in cash immediately. I had 6 months until my company held its open enrollment period. So I stripped my budget down to the studs. I stopped ordering delivery. I paused my standard investment contributions temporarily. I sold an old camera I had not used in 2 years. I scraped together exactly $3,000 in cash and put it in a separate high-yield savings account. I nicknamed that account the Emergency Medical Fund. I used to think that carrying a high deductible meant living on the edge of disaster every single day. Then, I found a 2021 report by the Employee Benefit Research Institute tracking health savings behaviors. Their data showed that workers who secure a cash buffer equal to their deductible before switching plans report 0 increase in financial anxiety. I proved that data right in my own life. Once I had that $3,000 sitting safely in the bank, the high-deductible plan was no longer a threat. It was a massive opportunity. I had the data proving I did not need the Gold Plan. and I had the cash to cover the worst-case scenario of the new plan. The trap was fully dismantled in my mind. All I had to do was wait for November to roll around. And when open enrollment finally opened, I executed the final step. That was the step that officially turned my healthcare from a guaranteed financial drain into a wealth-building machine. When November finally arrived, I was completely ready. Open enrollment started on a Monday morning. The third step I took was logging into the Human Resources portal, bypassing the shiny gold tier, and clicking the button for the high-deductible health plan. My bi-weekly premium immediately dropped from $150 to $50. That left me with an extra $100 every single paycheck. $200 a month of my own money was finally flowing back into my control. But the fourth and most important step I took was making sure I never actually saw that money in my checking account. I immediately opened a health savings account through the benefits portal. I set up an automatic transfer for that exact $200 difference. I used to think a health savings account was just a temporary debit card for bandages and copays that expired every December. Then I found a 2023 brief from the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College showing that millions of workers actively avoid health savings accounts because they confuse them with use-it-or-lose-it flexible spending accounts. I realized the system was so intentionally confusing that people were running away from the single greatest wealth-building tool available to them. A health savings account never expires. The money is yours forever. So I took that extra $2,400 a year and I invested it in a basic market index fund right inside the account. The money went in completely tax-free. It grows completely tax-free. And if I ever need to pay a hospital bill, I can pull it out completely tax-free. It is a triple tax advantage that my expensive premium plan could never offer. 3 years have passed since I sat in my car outside, that pharmacy feeling completely helpless. I still go to the doctor for my annual physicals. I still pay out of pocket for my occasional sinus medicine. But today, I have over $8,000 invested in my health savings account. That account is growing every single day. If I get sick tomorrow, I do not have to put a $350 pharmacy bill on a credit card. I just use the tax-free money I saved by refusing to finance the insurance company. And if I stay healthy for the next 20 years, that account will cross 6 figures. The American healthcare system is fundamentally designed to keep you afraid. They want you paying maximum premiums because they know you are terrified of the unknown. They use that fear to extract tens of thousands of dollars from your lifetime earnings. But peace of mind is not something you can buy with a massive monthly payroll deduction. Real peace of mind only comes from doing your own math and building your own safety net. You have to stop paying a premium for the illusion of coverage and start keeping your own money. If this video helped you see your finances differently, I want you to hit that like button and subscribe. Every video I make is something I wish someone had told me years earlier. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.